Okay, we've got a call for under the 8th fret and one for under the 1st fret. It doesn't really matter which frets, you just have to match the neck profile wherever you're supporting it. And there's some old bike inner tube to protect the finish. And then a call that clamps over the 5th fret with a cutout for the fret so it doesn't squeeze the fret. And then that clamp screws into these threaded inserts on the back. And then this router platform goes on top with an adjustable fence. And that fence is also held in place by threaded inserts. Here's the neck sitting in the cradle. And you can see how the clamping coil rests either side of the 5th fret. Then this bracket presses on the coil with slotted holes for the machine screws so they won't bind. And here's another view of the clamping coil holding the neck in place, again in a tube to protect the finish. It doesn't need much pressure on it, but it still holds the neck extremely firmly. And then the router platform sits on top over the nut location, and you can probably imagine how the router bit will cut the nut shelf. The fence sets where the bit will cut, and in this case I set it with respect to the existing slot, but I used a spacer. So when I removed the spacer, it was set for a 0.7mm cut back towards the bridge. I originally tried to do this without the cradle, just clamping the headstock onto the workbench, but the headstock was a bit cupped and it wasn't parallel to the nut, so it didn't work for me. And here's the router sitting on the platform. That's a 3mm carbide cutter. It's a little bit narrower than the nut slot, so suitable. Also, you can see how the platform's now clamped onto the cradle. And there's no indexing, which probably would be useful so that you could remove the top part with the fence and then put it back. But as it was, I just set it up once and finished all the cutting in one session. Here's another view from overhead. This first neck is only getting a wider nut slot, as the original slot was too far from the 1st fret, so those lower positions played out of tune. So I'm just enlarging the slot and using a wider nut blank. And here's my test cut on a piece of scrap. Now this measurement was quite important. I had to make sure the existing nut slot was parallel with the router platform, and I adjusted that by rotating the neck and the cradle, but I also could have shimmed one side of the router platform. And here's the nut slot before routing. Here's the nut slot after one pass at half depth. And that little shelf there's 0.7mm taken off the back of it. And here's the completed wider nut slot. And here's some close-ups of the wider slot. Focus isn't that great. Finish has been scuffed off along the bottom of that slot, so I put some sanding sealer on that. But where's the Floyd rose? Well, it's coming soon, so it's not too large a stretch to imagine this jig can also cut a Floyd rose shelf.